going to be 10 topics. So what I'm going to do is give you the opportunity to liaise with somebody in the class, and I want two of you to select a topic that you will present for us in the review class. Okay, and that review class is going to be on May 22nd. So again, we learned when we talked about terrorism, how important networking was or is. And, by now, I encourage everybody to get to know the persons in the class. So if you have an issue teaming up with somebody and picking a topic, then let me know and I'll just assign persons. So that's next week when we start class, you would come and select your topic. And what I would do is right after this class, I'll send out the review sheet so you can look at the various topics. So of course, it's just going to be one of the chapters or something that we would have discussed as we were going through the lecture. I said, well, this is popular on the exam, or of course, that you're going to be tested on this. So when you see the subtitles on the review sheet, should be very familiar, and you should be able to jump out and say, Ms. Bullitt, I want to do this topic. So please let me know if you have any issues, but come prepared next week to confirm. Do we foresee any issues with that? Do we have an issue networking with persons in the class? Do I need to just assign persons, go down this list and say, assign persons with each other, or can I leave that up to you?
Please
I
assign.
think you should assign the people because
That just makes it easier, right?
Yeah, assign
Yeah,
them
we
and
don't
make
know
it
each
more
other.
easier.
This
Right.
the third week of class and y'all don't know each other?
No,
The
man.
Miss
third
Bullitt,
week,
why are you acting like that?
I
the
telling
third
you,
week.
and we ain't even in class. Now you know we was in
That's
class. We
okay.
probably
Just on
would
a
have
This
learned.
virtual
Would have been
space.
different. Online, completely.
is the new norm. We have to get used
We
to
don't
these
like it.
things. Do you want to get to the next level in your career?
Yeah.
We'll feel
Okay,
better if we
so
was
you
in
have to
class.
mix. So what
We
about the
was in
WhatsApp
class.
group? Did anybody form the
Oh
WhatsApp
no,
group?
we never create that. No.
Okay, so again, if you're going to go, or by now you should know if you're just waiting for this last class, or if I'm going on. And so if you are moving on to the next level, please form the WhatsApp group and then support each other. Okay, Demerit, you have your hand up.
Yes, well, there are 3 persons in this class that I work with. So that's 4 of us. We can pair up.
Okay, so you want to give me those names?
Okay, that'll be myself, Antonique Bow.
Because Demerit's supposed to say, I don't want to pair up with Shanique. How about that?
Oh, well,
I just joking. It was just a joke. It was just a joke.
I know, but I'm about to say, I'm really going on the assumption that they would want to pair up.
Of course they will, of course.
I think it's a very bad idea for them. I think it's a bad idea for them to pair up because we don't know each other. And if they already know each other, then they need to get to know new people.
I agree, Jasmine. Shanique, no, y'all need to come out of your comfort zone and get to know persons. And so no pairing up if you already know the people. Find somebody new.
Okay.
Give me the names. Let me make sure. Shanique, Antonique, what's the next name?
Leandra.
And
Selena.
Okay, those 4 will not work together. Okay, so Shanique, we are pairing you with Sierra. Antonique, we are pairing you with Deandra. Leandra, Leandra Sanders. Okay, these names are similar.
It's Leandra.
Okay, so Leandra, we are going to pair you with Whistleyan. And Selena, we are going to pair you with Lisa Sanders. Okay, so we have those pairs, right?
Yes.
Okay, so A. Gibson will be paired with Ian Williams. Jasmine will be paired with Omega. Cydalline will be with Alex. Ashley and Candace. Donovan and Eleanor. and Latoya and Felicia. So is there anybody who is not paired? Did I miss anybody?
Yes, Ms. Ballard. My co-workers, Sasha Stewart and Brandon Lam, I didn't have their name. This is
Okay,
Donovan.
Sasha is here? No, and Brenda, you said?
Brandon Lam, I don't see them in the room.
And they are co-workers, both of them.
Yes.
Okay, so we may
We need
have
another
to,
quick shuffle.
yeah, let them know we'll perhaps do,
My skin feeling. I could work with Brendan if you want to switch me.
do you know Brendan, Ian?
No, not on a personal level.
Okay. So Ian will go with Brendan and Sasha will go with A. Gibson. Could you let them know, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Donovan?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Okay, let me just look at the chat. You all know Miss Bullety and too technically savvy. Okay, yeah, so everybody is saying DM me a number. Very good. So share your numbers. And again, if you have not gotten your 5% as yet, please take your partner with you to your civic organizational meeting and introduce yourself, network, get to know the movers and shakers of the Bahamas corporate service world. So, get out there and meet some people. Okay, so after this class, I will send the review sheets later on today because I want y'all to have a break, and I want a break after we talk for 3 hours. So later on today, no later than tomorrow, you'll get the topics. Do I need to assign the topics as well, or so there's no overlapping, eh? Do you think?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, assign the
think so.
topic.
Okay. When y'all get your intro, y'all have to do this yourself. So Sasha and Gibson is going to do customer due diligence. And this just out Miss Bullet Head now. When y'all see the review sheet, let me try and pull one up 1 second on the old one, but I'll have to tweak.
Whatever I want to pick.
Go ahead, call it out if you want pick.
Understanding terrorist financing.
Okay, good one. Review sheet. Okay, anybody else? Who's that? Sierra. Understanding
Shanique, do you object to the topic?
That's fine.
Okay.
terrorism. Okay. Okay, so Brandon and Ian. What's your topic, or you want me to pick?
Call the option off. Let me see what you're working with.
Okay, I trying to pull it up right now.
Is process of money laundering a topic?
Of course. Who's that?
Yes. Can I have your sibling? Can I have that one, please, with Alex?
Okay.
If Alex, if you don't mind.
Okay, money laundering, Sidley and Alex. Okay, good.
Process, yeah.
One will be court orders. Anybody want to do court orders? No? Okay. 1 second, it's coming up now. Enhanced due diligence. Okay, so AML and terrorist financing differences. So we already have money laundering and terrorism, so that's covered. Fines for tipping off and failing to disclose. Antonique and Deandra. Fines for tipping off.
I don't like that one too much.
Okay.
I think I like that one, if Leandra agrees.
Fines for tipping off and failing to disclose, Whistleine and Leandra.
If she agrees to it.
I agree with it. It's no problem.
Okay. The next topic is IMF disaster relief requires research.
I could do that.
Okay. IMF, that's Ian and Brandon. Okay. Selena and Whistleine, FATF task. It requires some research. Current events in the Bahamas.
Me and Leandra doing fines for tipping off.
Yeah, that's Whistling. I say in Selena and Welisa. Welisa Sanders
Oh,
and Selena. No, none of them are here. Okay, so somebody tell them FATF task.
So Ms. Bullard, I thought you was gonna call up all the subjects so we could see. which
Yeah, and
is-
then let us pick.
Because you're only picking every one you say someone jumping on. We don't know all of the options.
Okay, let's start over. AML and terrorist financing differences. Fines, and this is from an old review sheet. Fines for tipping off and failing to disclose, domestic terrorism and terrorist financing, IMF disaster relief requires research, FATF task, and FATF current events in the Bahamas, it requires research, senior management board, MLRO roles and responsibilities, ML money laundering crimes in the Bahamas requires research, court orders, Bahamas requires research, customer due diligence, enhanced and simplified due diligence, statutory requirements.
Let the record show that
Anyone-
understanding terrorist financing has already been taken. Thank
Right,
you.
right.
Anyone already
But
have
there's
court
another
orders?
one for domestic, specifically for domestic terrorism.
Anyone
Hi,
have court orders?
can Ashley and Candice do simplified and enhanced due diligence if Candice doesn't mind, please?
Okay. No, that's fine. We should go with that. Okay. A. Gibson.
Hi,
Okay, you and Sasha. I don't think Sasha is here. You want-
right, customer due diligence, right?
Right.
Okay.
Jasmine and Omega.
Ms. Bullard,
Yes.
if Latoya agrees, could we do the senior board?
Responsibilities
Yes, ma'am.
and roles.
Latoya, that's okay?
Silence gives consent.
She said yes. Okay,
Okay,
thanks.
good. Jasmine and Omega.
What the topic is for us again?
I mean, there are a few topics left. Money laundering crimes, court orders.
No, we want court orders, and Smith and Deandra.
Who is that? Anthony and Deandra want court orders.
Ms. Bullard,
Deandra, that's fine.
money laundering?
Money laundering. I thought money laundering
fine.
and gone.
Yeah,
Oh.
We
money
can take that,
laundering.
Omega.
So
Money
money
laundering,
laundering and gone.
yes.
What all available, Ms. Bullard?
At this point, money laundering crimes in the Bahamas. Yeah, and then the differences between money laundering and terrorist financing. Donovan, you can do that one.
Yeah, me and Eleanor will do that one.
Differences, okay.
Once again, can you please tell Jasmine and Omega what's available so we could choose?
I thought y'all chose court orders.
Did we?
No,
Anthony and Deandra said court orders.
Everybody talking one time, so
That's the only thing that's left.
court orders?
No,
Court orders was taken by Anthony and I.
Okay, money laundering crimes.
Okay.
Money laundering crimes. Okay.
Okay.
You okay? You good with that, Mega?
Yeah.
Ms. Bullard,
Yes.
could you confirm that the topic for the MLRO responsibilities is senior board MLRO responsibilities?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Bullard, which part of the money, because I heard a lot of money laundering, which part of the money laundering you gave me? That's the stages?
But yeah, you could do the stages, you could do like placement, integration, what have you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stages. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So that's me and Alex.
Who got domestic terrorism?
Nobody.
See, that's why I confused. I know it was more than that left. Anyway, I mean, I have my subject, but I just know something was missing.
Okay, well, throw that in with yours then. Could you
Okay,
add
that's
that?
fine.
Could you add that?
Yeah, that's
too?
fine, because we already
Okay.
doing
Right.
understanding terrorist financing.
Okay, great.
So, and domestic terrorism.
So Ms. Bullard, could you go over it again as in what we doing with the subject? This is for when?
For the week of May 22nd, when we have a review class.
May 22nd.
Yeah, and so I'm going to send out the review sheet. And you should see similar topics. Remember now, I just picked up an old review sheet and called off some topics. Okay, so I'm gonna tweak it a little bit. but you should be able to identify a topic. Okay, so let me just go down the line. I have Sasha and A. Gibson, customer due diligence. I have Brendan and Ian dealing with the IMF. I have Shanique and Sierra, terrorism and domestic. Antonique and Deandra, court orders. Sanders and Wesleyan, the fines for tipping off and failing to disclose. Selena and Belisa, FATF task. Jasmine and Omega, money laundering crimes. Sadia and Alex, money laundering stages. Ashley, who's your partner? Because I write so bad, I can't even see this name.
Candice is my partner.
Candice, sorry. Candice, and I have simplified and enhanced due diligence. And then I have Donovan. And Donovan, who's your partner?
My partner be Eleanor.
Eleanor. Okay, and that's differences, money laundering, terrorist financing. And then Latoya and Felicia, senior management, MLRO roles and responsibilities. Okay, does everybody have a partner and does everybody have a topic?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Okay, good that we got through that. Okay, so anybody read the newspaper? Anybody getting their 5% as yet? And again, next week on the review class will be your last opportunity to get your 5%. So please take advantage of it. Like I said, the 5% is the difference between the 65 and the 70 that you need to pass. Or if you're a scholar, the A and the B. You need 90% to get the A. And so persons have been calling me, Ms. Bullet, I get 68. No, this is all the opportunities. And right now, I think I have Sidlene, Shanique, Deandra, Ashley, and Felicia for the 5%. Is there anybody else?
I read.
I got my 5%, Ms. Bullet.
Me, I have something to share.
Whistling.
Oh, and
I remember when we first came in the class and we used some technical difficulties. We used like, for our student completion, you give everybody 10%. I remember that, Ms. Bullet.
No, the 10% for participation.
Okay.
So he was giving us 5% for the technical difficulties.
No, I was giving you all the 10% for participation and being understanding. The 5% is you have to go to the civic organization. Right? You have to go to Toastmasters. You have to go to attend a meeting or a webinar or what have you. Or it's Toastmasters, Kiwanis, or what's the next group?
Key Club.
Rotary.
Yeah, Key Club, yeah.
Okay.
Right? And so remember we had some persons last week that shared. 1 second,
Right.
Ian has his hand up. 1 second for Ian. Go ahead, Ian.
Oh no, that was to share for the 5%, but I mean, I could get into that later if there's something important you get into.
Okay, go ahead. Somebody wanted to ask a question? Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. This is Candace.
Okay.
My first class. So you're saying we just have to attend the meeting and that's it?
Yeah, you
Just let
attended
you
and
know?
you come back and you share and you tell us exactly what happened in the meeting. Like if you would attend Toastmasters, they normally have a word for the day. So you come back and you share with us the word for the day and you introduce yourself because the whole point is to network. And then you tell us whether or not you found the meeting beneficial and what they discussed. And then you get your 5%.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, so you're gonna get an example because Ian is gonna get his 5% today, so he's gonna share with us. Go ahead, Ian.
All right, morning everyone. I attended a Toastmasters meeting on Thursday. The Toastmasters Club is called Visionaries. I don't exactly remember the number. This is the UB branch of Toastmasters, COB UB branch. And it was headed by Toastmaster Angel Benaby. Now, particularly this meeting, because I didn't stay too long, I probably stayed for 40 minutes or so, but they were having elections for their board of directors. So that was basically the, I guess, the energy for the meeting, but I did stay to get the word of the day, and the word of the day was sprightly. So that was a new vocabulary that I never knew before. So that basically means it's an adjective to describe your level of energy or festiveness or liveliness or some overwhelming means of excitement. So that was the word of the day.
Okay, very good, Ian. And did you find it beneficial? Will you visit again?
Well, I actually used to be a part of that Toastmasters group. So yeah, but I used to be a member of Toastmasters, but yeah, I would continue to attend meetings. It's just that after you reach a certain point in college, time. So that's why I really dropped out of that affiliation. But it was beneficial.
Okay, very good. And I do hope you do find the time to get back into it. So excellent. I'm glad you found it beneficial. And then again, of course, the movers and shakers are there, the people you need to know, the people that control corporate Bahamas. And so you definitely want to build your network there. So very good. Anybody else wants to share? Leandro, go ahead, Leandro.
Morning, everybody. I didn't get to attend any meetings, but I read the newspaper. And what I read from the newspaper is that Central Bank did a survey on 3,317 cases of check, debit, and credit card fraud. Now, in my line of work, I normally do risk and fraud for the gaming part of it, of compliance. So that kind of catch my eyes with that. So yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah,
it kind of catch my eyes with it.
Okay, so give us some advice. How do we not become the victim? And what did they say in the article?
And they didn't explain exactly how to not become the victim, but they just explained the percentage of how much frauds and credit card it is in the article. That's basically it.
And that's an astronomical amount, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that was just pertinent to the Bahamas.
Okay, so I was going to share. Sorry, yes, I was about to share the same thing, actually.
Okay, so add to it, Jasmine.
It says the central bank in its 2020 payments are, excuse me, coughing, I just getting over COVID, so I didn't really want to speak prior to this. The central bank said its 2020 payment survey has recovered some 3,317 fraudulent transactions worth a collective 5.2 million, involving credit card and debit card as well as checks. While debit cards accounted for the majority or more than 2/3 of cases, checks formed from bulk value involved. Checks form the bulk value of the involvement. So what she said is correct. But that was the exact same thing I was going to share. That's why I just wanted to add to it, like to give you the numbers that they gave.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for adding to that. And again, all of us, some of us have a checking account and all of us have a debit card, right? And so we need to know all the risks associated with our card. And of course, I know back in the day when I worked at Royal Bank, they used to be, when the cruise ships came in, a lot of their workers used to come out and sit down in front of the Royal Bank downtown. Any of y'all recall that? No, nobody recalls that. But anyway, the Wi-Fi was open and they used to sit at the ATM and there were millions of dollars worth of fraud at that ATM downtown until they felt like, well, one of those persons must be the scammer because they are always out there. And so they turned off that Wi-Fi. And so, that stopped the persons from hanging around. It didn't necessarily stop the scamming, but it reduced it. And another incident is with Scotiabank. Scotiabank, I think has the Atlantis accounts, and somebody had put in a device at the Atlantis front desk, And so they had a big, fraud against persons. Everybody who had checked in over a month had their cards compromised. So it's a good article to read and to get some tips on how to ensure that you do not become a victim. And if you do become a victim, immediately, turn your cards off and get them replaced. Okay, so awareness is key. Okay, so very, very good.
Also, Ms. Bullet, I noticed also in the newspaper that the fraudulent with this businessman, he claims he got a fraudulent check from Bahamas Mortgage Corporation.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all said it was last week. He said it was a check from Bahamas Mortgage Corporation, 73,500. He presented to the Bank of the Bahamas, and they called the police on him.
Right, and so this isn't just in social media today. I see that 4 persons were put on suspension from Bahamas Mortgage. So I think it was an inside job, and they have 4 persons pending investigation. So it's good to follow it, because sometimes it is an inside job. Over the pandemic, I had bought some lumber from FYP, and when my carpenter came in, he said, "Oh, this is incorrect. You need to take it back and change." So I took it back and I changed it. And the person who, she said, "Well, I need your card to exchange it." And I thought it was funny because I said, "Well, I'm going to pay cash for the difference." And she said, "Okay, I still need your card. I'm going to give you a credit." But I don't know why, because I was only paying a difference. But anyway, I gave her my card, and she subsequently charged me 3 times for the lumber that I had returned. And it took them like 6 months to figure out that this lady had charged me 3 times for the lumber that I had returned. They said, "Oh, we have to watch our cameras, we have to do this." I must have called them 100 times before in fact, they never credited me. I had to go through my bank and file a dispute in order to get, and once the bank contacted them and they went through with the dispute, then the lady got let go. But essentially, she charged my card 3 times and took the money, I guess, out of the cash register and stole it. So yeah, be very careful. And that was a return. So be very careful with that. Okay, so very good. Continue on reading and keeping abreast of what's happening in your country. Okay, and like I said, look for the controls to ensure that you do not become victim. Okay, anybody else wants to share, or we can go on now with the chapters?
I'll share, Ms. Willard.
Go ahead.
This is Donovan. I was reading the Tribune on Wednesday, and they were talking about the inception of the credit bureau that you had mentioned.
Yes.
And they were saying that they were, as at May, they were about to issue their initial report assessment. Now, this is not like the go live assessment, but like an inaugural data composition of commercial banks in the Bahamas. Now, they said the go live date would be like 2021 year end. So for right now, only like commercial banks, the Bahamas Development Bank, and like the Mortgage Corporation are giving them data sources. But in time, auto lenders, furniture stores, and other payday loan companies, they will be added to the list.
Okay, so I'm fine with all of that, but they even said the utility companies. So if some people only pay BPL half,
right?
They're gonna do the utility companies as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh wow.
Insurance too, though. Insurance too.
Well, the initial, like the insurance companies, all the financial and corporate service providers, like they would be the initial ones to putting in the sources right now.
Okay, so
right. But they said the commercial bank right now they'll use their own assessment until the deep into like the month.
Yeah, but so what I am not understanding, Donovan, is first they said they were not going to be retroactive, but how else, is it? Because I was advising persons when you had the announcement, because it was supposed to come online at January, of 2021.
Mm.
However, you know, due to the pandemic, it was pushed back.
Right.
But I was telling persons, when you get that Christmas bonus, please pay all your bills.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you could go in with a clean slate, because you really do not want to start off with a bad credit rating, and you can just pay attention to how it works in America, you know, the Equifax. And what is the next one? Anybody familiar?
You talking about the league, right? The credit card league or the
No, I'm
information.
just saying.
No, you're talking about the credit rating agencies,
Yeah,
right?
the credit rating,
scoring. Yeah.
How you're gonna be scored. I'm saying go in with a good score, you know, because if you go in with a low score because you didn't pay BPL this month, then you doomed from the beginning.
Yeah, but the Kenneth Brathwaite, he's from the Clarence Banks Association. He did say if you have like borrowing agreements with multiple institutions, it's going to be really hard for you. But yeah, he didn't say.
Yeah, so persons better go do a consolidation now, because like I say, if you go in with a bad rating now and you don't even have a mortgage, you know, it's going to be pretty difficult to get a mortgage after that. So look at all your bills, and when you hear it announced, please make sure everything is paid up, because they said not retroactive.
No, they didn't mention anything.
And somebody mentioned that they're going to go back 3 years. They're going to get data for 3 years and then rate you based on how you paid in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
But they definitely can't take information from 2020. My God, what's going to happen to the hotel workers if they get that information from 2020?
They can't really use 2021 either. People still out there trying to catch themselves.
Right. So again, pay attention to what they do, because many persons may have to advocate to get their rating fixed or waived right up front because of what has happened in the economy. Okay, so watch it. So good article, Donovan, and pay attention to make sure that, you know, you go in with a clean slate and a good rating. Okay, good. Somebody else had their hand up? No? Okay, good. So very good. Keep reading and keep, you know, being a part of the conversation to help get our Bahama land back on track to where it needs to be. And that's where you start. You start with the knowledge, and then you educate yourself, and then, you know, hopefully we are the future leaders of our country. So hopefully one of us will, you know, or most of us will take a stance or go out there and help, you know, these governments do what they are supposed to do, okay? And without corruption and bribery and all those sorts of things, okay? Okay, so good. So chapter 5 and 6 talks about risk. And in 2018, remember, I said that most of our laws were repealed and replaced. We took a staggered approach from 2000 when the laws initially came out. We had the shell in place, and then they developed over, you know, over the years. And then so 2018, prior to that, the FATF and the international bodies had a rules-based approach, whereas like they had a lot of procedures or policies that you follow and a lot of rules that you should follow, okay? And they didn't really find that effective because they saw it as like a one size does not fit all, because it depends on the metrics, the size of your organization, the products and services that you offer. And so they moved from that rules-based approach to a risk-based approach, okay? And we talked about the FAT 40 recommendations. Everybody's familiar with the 40 recommendations by now. And I just went to the FATF site. And again, when you go to the sites, you wanna ensure that you look at this date and don't be like the other persons in my class that write a 3,500 word essay on the 212 version. So you check the date. Is this the correct date? October 2020 is the most recent one. And again, we looked at this and you see the old numbers versus the new numbers. And we're going to start with recommendation 1. And what recommendation 1 says, and again, all of this is just for a visual. We delve deeper into it when we get to intermediate. And this is even a part of your book, the 40 recommendations. We want to just look at recommendation 1 and see what it says. And so again, it talks about assessing this same risk-based approach that they changed to. And it basically says in all this writing, countries should assess their risks, determine what controls needs to be in place, and implement those controls to mitigate the risks that they are faced with. Okay, and so let's think about one of the risks we could be faced with. So normally a risk for each institute, each country had to go and complete a risk assessment on the entire country. And so if you look at a country's risk, if you offer services to politically exposed persons, or if you accept bearer shares, they are risk, they are high risk. And so what this is saying is, hey, you offer bearer shares, you need to put some controls in place. And so what the law says and what central bank guidelines say that if you accept bearer share accounts, and this is different from registered shares. And so if you accept bearer share accounts, you need some controls in place to protect against the risk that a bearer share account would give to your company. And so therefore, the control is that if we accept bearer shares, we receive a letter from the holder of the shares confirming that if these shares are transferred, I will advise the bank. We receive a letter from the beneficial owner of the shares and say, I promise not to trade these shares with bin Laden without letting you know, and you doing customer due diligence on bin Laden and deciding if you want him on your books or not. Okay, so those are like two promissory letters that you get if you're going to accept bearer shares. And then there's normally a nominee agreement, because most shareholders registry says, these shares belong to Bullitt & Co. Bullitt & Co. does not necessarily say that Miss Bullitt owns the shares. That & Co. means Miss Bullitt and bin Laden could use, that's under a company name. So it could possibly be bin Laden. And so therefore, you want that nominee agreement. So our control in place, if we're going to accept bearer shares, is to get those two letters, one from the beneficial owner, one from the person holding the shares, and then to get a nominee agreement. Okay, that says the owners and the shareholders of Bullitt & Co. are only Miss Bullitt or Miss Bullitt and bin Laden. And of course, if we get that nominee agreement and said it's Miss Bullitt and bin Laden, what's going to happen? Anybody? You're listening to me? We there? Hello?
Yes,
Hi.
I'm listening.
Y'all gotta talk back to me. Tell me what happened. Sorry, you breaking up. Who is this, Candace? No, Candace, we can't hear you. Can anybody else hear Candace? Donovan, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Ms. Buller.
Okay, so Donovan, tell me what's gonna happen. I think Candace may be having some difficulties.
I guess you will be in breach of the AML CFT rules.
Right, because definitely we can't open up an account for bin Laden, right?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so this is what recommendation 1 is saying. If you accept PEPs, put some controls in place to protect your institution against PEPs. Okay, if you accept bearer shares, put some controls in place to ensure that you protect yourself against the bearer shares and all the risks associated with it. Okay, so that's recommendation 1. And again, I just wanted to show you a visual so you get familiar, and as you move up or even in your institutions, this is the international standard. So of course, it goes from international standard. Then this, of course, recommendation 1 is in our FTRA 218 section 5, where it talks about risk. Okay, and so each institution in each country has to put a risk framework in place. And normally it's threefold. There is a risk assessment, there is the risk appetite, and then there is the risk rating form. Okay, so that's a part of your framework. So each institution would then submit that to their regulator. Their regulator will then look at how many clients they have what type of clients, are they high risk, are they low, are they medium, what are they high risk countries, are they high risk products and services, do they have the proper controls in place? And once they are satisfied with that, risk framework, then they would actually risk rate that company. So the country as a whole is risk rated first, the company, then the financial service organization, whether you're the number house or the bank or the real estate or the accountant, the lawyer, all those that have a corporate service providers arm or they provide financial services to their clients, they are risk rated. Country first risk rated, organization then risk rated, and then each client risk rated. Okay, so there's a lot of risk going on and a lot of rating. Okay, and are we all familiar with the country, the organization, and the client? Most of us will probably just be familiar with the client. Anybody? Are we following this?
I'm familiar with all three.
Yes,
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, and so again, when they say we want a risk-based approach, we're following recommendation 1. And right now, the Bahamas government, our risk rating, remember I told you all the story about going into New York and trying to bring our trading desk here. Did I tell you all that story?
Yes, ma'am.
Right,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
so
Yes.
the perception out there is that the Bahamas is risk rated high. And because our risk rating on the country level has been outstanding since 2015, 2016, they did not open that account for us. So until we can prove that we are not high, we are medium, and our risk rating is in place, then persons will, I guess it'll be easier for us to do business. And so I just want to show you, this is can you still see the screen?
Yes,
We
ma'am.
got
Okay, so this is the, you may say, well, who decides, on a country risk rating? And that's another thing. When we put this risk framework in place, the importance is to be able to explain the methodology. Like, how did you come to this conclusion that I'm high risk? Because of course, no country wants to be high risk. And so right here is methodology. So you should have a methodology for your country risk rating. You should have a methodology for your internal risk rating, because the customers, even though we don't share this information with customers, but how did you decide whether I'm high, medium, or low? Okay, and that's the methodology. And so the Basel Committee, is an international body that risk rate countries. And let's just look at their methodology. In their methodology, they said, this is how I risk rate a country. And so, of course, if a country is risk rated high, they're going to know based on what, and they're going to challenge that. And so this is the methodology, and this is how they risk rate a person, a country, based on their FATF mutual evaluation report. And remember, out of the 40 recommendations, we were deficient in 22. We are now satisfied most of those deficiencies, and we are largely compliant. So I think there are about 10 that are partially compliant, but 30 out of the 40 are largely compliant. So they're going to look at our mutual evaluation report. Then Tax Justice Network Financial Secrecy Index. I'm not really familiar with what that is, but I'm certain, our country has some type of network or category to fill that out. And then, this says US and what have you, but of course it's for all countries, but the quality of the framework is 65%. And then there's something called corruption risk, which is 10%. And of course, remember, I think I talked about this last week, where one day I was doing wires for persons in Russia and Madagascar. And then I was told that we no longer do business with countries that have a corruption perception index, the CPI index, that's less than 30. And so you could go to Transparency International and you could get a country risk rating, but you can also get a CPI index. And that CPI index, any country that is below 45 is considered high risk. And sometimes people don't do business with them. Okay. Luckily for us, our CPI index is 65. So it's above the 45. So we're not, in terms of corruption, we're not considered high. But I went, whilst, our politicians were being brought before the court, because that's what makes your corruption perception index drop. I was very concerned. But so far, 3 out of the 4 have been, released or acquitted. And so therefore, that did not affect our rating. But of course, in the countries where the presidents and the prime ministers have been going to jail, of course, that has affected their corruption perception index. And then there's a bribery index. I think we are 81 out of 195. And so that's fairly okay in terms of the bribery risk matrix. And again, all of these are international bodies where they risk rate all countries. Okay, so you want to pay attention to our ratings in those categories to make sure our rating doesn't fall below 45 or possibly 30. And then you have countries saying, oh no, you can't send any wire to the Bahamas because of their corruption perception index. Okay, so it's very important, because if we can't get wires, that's the financial services sector going down the drain. Okay. And then financial transparency and public transparency and accountability, legal and political risks. And this is their methodology. So just how they have a methodology, so we can go back and advocate and say, hey, there's no way you could risk rate us as high because, we satisfied most of your requirements. The customer should be able to do the same thing. Now, we don't share our risk rating information with the customer. However, as a compliance professionals, we should understand how it works. Now, sometimes compliance keeps it a secret. They don't want persons outside of the department to know the methodology because, of course, they try to manipulate it, because most salespersons are on commission. They don't get paid if that account is not open. And of course, nobody wants to do enhanced due diligence when the account is high risk. So therefore, they try to manipulate it. But as compliance professionals, you must understand how it works. Okay, so I just want to show you, let's see if the map is going to come up. Where are we? The Bahamas, that's Haiti. You see how high Haiti's rate is. And this is the legend right to the side that tells you what is high and what is considered low. And of course, we see all the green countries, that are low. And as you get into orange territory, you're almost considered high. So let's just look at where Bahamas is. And let's see. Okay, there we are. And this would have been based on our rating from 2015 and 16. And so if you in intermediate, we've been looking at the updates. The government has put out a lot of updates. And they said that in March 2021, the new risk assessment would have been completed for the country, and then we would have submitted it to the Basel Committee or the international bodies, and then they would have risk rated us again. So we are borderline high risk, and the perception is that we're high. And so unless this assessment is completed now, the class was watching the whole of March to see if something came out. We didn't see anything coming out advising that it was complete and it was sent on to the international bodies. But hopefully soon there should be some correspondence, because they were doing a tracking to see where they are. And again, it's very complex, and all of the financial services sector has to be, I guess, involved or engaged to give feedback on it. And so that's how, with the surveys, they've been sending the surveys out to the various banks, the Securities Commission sending it out to the various securities companies, the gaming board sending it out, and the insurance commission sending it to the insurance. Now, most recently in 2019, this was one of our deficiencies in our 22 recommendations that was not up to date. The non-financial businesses, remember the accounting firms, the law firms, and the real estate companies, they didn't even have a regulator before 2019. So imagine in 2019, for the first time, you're being told you can't get a license if you don't have a MLRO on board, on staff. You can't get a license if you don't complete this risk framework. And your new regulator is the Compliance Commission. So you could imagine that, you know, the law firms, the accounting firms, and the real estates were scrambling, just like in 2015 before the gaming board legalized the gaming houses, they were scrambling. Okay, so all of that information would have been missing from our prior risk assessment. This is the whole entire financial services sector. So you can imagine how complex it is. The credit unions weren't regulated by the central bankers yet. So, you know, everybody is on a learning curve. So imagine now for the first time, you're working in this law firm. Nobody's done this before. It's only happened in the banks. And they send you all of these questions you don't even know how to answer. And then you have to create a risk framework for your organization and you don't know it. Okay, and then it was limited trainings. And then you had companies like Deloitte and Touche who were saying, okay, we'll do this for your business for $80,000. And you're thinking, well, I just had to hire a compliance officer, $60,000 there. I had to put systems in place. I had to train this person, you know, so it's cost involved. Regulation is very expensive. So some law firms just closed out or they stopped offering the corporate service providers arm. Again, we're not talking about the ones who go before the courts with the criminals. We're talking about corporate. We're talking about financial services. Okay, some real estate agents offer financial services. Some accountants offer financial services. So it would affect those groups. Okay, so just like, remember I told you all the story about my colleague in Switzerland where he said, you know, when all our laws changed because Switzerland was also deficient in 20 of 30 of these recommendations. When they put these laws in place in Switzerland, they had 250 banks, now they have 50. So it wiped out their sector. Okay, and so now everybody is on board. Where the banks have been doing it for the last 18 years and we are more trained. The credit unions and the, the law firms and stuff, they're still on the learning page, you know, curve, wondering, do we really have to do it? Yes, it has to be done. And then once you gather all this, once you train yourself on how to do this and gather all this information, then you send it to your regulator and they tell you whether you are high, medium, or low. And then they compile all this information and then they collate it to, you know, make a risk assessment for the Bahamas. So all these players are involved. So you could imagine how complex it is, but it's very important. And again, that's why we talked about the sand dollar. The Bahamas overall does not want to be seen as cash intensive. And so we created the digital currency because we should know by now that if you're cash intensive, you get a higher risk rating. Okay, and the Canadian banks say, we don't do business with cash intensive. And of course, you know, the entire gaming sector, as well as all the money services businesses, they are high risk. They are considered cash intensive. Okay, so the governor has strategically, you know, placed the digital currency launched through the money services businesses, the cash and goes, the Western Unions, and what have you. Okay. Also on the security side, where persons invest, you know, our leverage was higher than most other countries, and so that attracted a lot of persons in the securities. You know, a lot of broker dealers just popped up all around because persons saw that the Bahamas had a higher leverage. But again, that causes you to be high risk. And so what another initiative is that the governor has reduced the leverage. Okay, you're very quiet, you're scaring me. Come, I need some feedback. Talk back to me. You're asleep? If you're asleep, I listen. Okay, so
a lot of information.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. Okay, so I can scale it down so you could, you know, you could retain it, but it is a lot. Okay, but I just want you to understand risk. Just when you hear a person saying it's a risk-based approach, what does that mean? Because a lot of times we say things, we just want to sound intelligent, but we don't really know what we're talking about. But when somebody says risk, you automatically know that they're talking about recommendation 1 from the FATF for the recommendations and section 5 of the FTRA. Okay, and what a risk-based approach is. 3-tier risk assessment, risk appetite, risk rating. Okay, and risk appetite is, do I want to do business with PEPs? Because even though the country say, okay, we'll do business with PEPs from other countries, your bank can say, no, I don't have an appetite for PEPs. Even though my bank does business with Russia and sometimes Iran, your bank, like the Canadian bank, say, oh no, we don't want no Russia, we don't want no high-risk countries. Your bank may say, we will open up a bearer share account. My bank may say, oh no, it's too much risk involved and it's the cost goes up because the work is double. Okay? So I don't want to overwhelm you. Okay? And so again, the benefits of a risk-based approach is, it's a cost-effective system. Concentration is focused on the greater risk, being able to distinguish between clients and the risk they pose to the business. Because of course we will risk rate the clients, high, medium, and low. Okay? And then there are other types of risk. There's criminal risk, there's reputational risk. And this is an interesting thing to watch as well if you're going to go further and become a compliance officer. Whilst I was at Royal, many persons were, let go for stealing by reason of employment or what have you. However, the bank, would arrest them in the first instance, but they would never show up to court because they always said that, it's more reputational risk if the public thinks that the bank employee is just thieving all the money. And so they didn't want to be in the media every day. In fact, I worked at Royal Bank Trust and we were very profitable. However, we were being sued by the French government. And there are 5 other entities of Royal Bank Retail, Dominion Securities, Capital Markets, Corporate Banking. Okay. And so rather than we be dragged, because we were in the papers, and this was back in 2016, like every day in France and in Nassau, and we closed out. Very profitable business, but we closed out because of the reputational risk of us being in the papers every day saying that we allowed these customers to infiltrate our system. Okay, they had stolen art. And if you know how a trust works, a trust is a legal entity. And so Royal Bank, everything would be in Royal Bank's name. And then we would get like a letter of wishes from the client. And so the client would say, I wish for Royal Bank to open up a storage facility where I could keep my art. And so we go on the line, call our contacts in France and say, we need a storage facility. And in that storage facility, it was in our name, Royal Bank of Canada. And the French government was looking for some stolen art for many years. And guess where it was? Right in that storage facility that we had opened. Okay, and so that's how we got tied up with that, and very profitable Fortune 500 division closed down. Okay, so you have to be careful. And then there was this like concentration risk, and we had some accounts out of Antigua and Barbuda where the central bank said, if you fail, that bank has all their eggs in one basket. So they encouraged them to take half of their money out of our company and put it in another company because they said, if you fail, they automatically fail because all their money is with you. So concentration risk. So there are different types of risks. Okay. So you want to assess the risk of your products and services. You want to assess the delivery risk. You want to assess the customer risk. And you want to assess the geographical risk. Okay, so this, again, like I say, risk assessment, risk rating, risk appetite. It's the new, what should I say, in every institution, everybody is now being risk rated. So of course, everybody does not want their institution to be risk rated overall. So they are looking at their portfolio and they are calculating how many PEPs do we have? How many bearer share accounts do we have? Do we offer trust services? Do we offer correspondent banking? Okay, because if we do, we need to ensure that we have the proper controls in place to mitigate those risks. We need to have the policies and procedure. We need to do the proper due diligence, and we're going to talk about due diligence now, whether it's enhanced or simplified. And we need to train our staff so the staff understands how it works. They understand the methodology. They speak knowledgeably to it, and they can identify what is, high, medium, or low. Okay, and any questions on risk? You're scaring me, you're too quiet. Talk back to me, Alex. Good, Alex, give me some feedback.
No, Mama, just so this is my first time hearing being a part of a financial class, so I'm just getting used to the jargon. But I'm hearing everything. It just is open up my mind to a lot of things. Everything that you're saying is very illuminating. That's what I would say. Yeah, thinking about a lot of things. But the whole method behind risk is very subjective. I mean, the drug reports, they would be taking findings from the trafficking reports and the drug reports. I mean, those are things that are very hard to control. Controlling your borders and controlling migration, and to use those findings to come up with a grade on your risk. That's very, it's interesting. That's what I would say.
Right.
Yeah, and then when you said just now about what you used to do in terms of what that bank used to do, that was very interesting as well, in terms of the art. I never knew that. So yeah. But I'm just listening and just trying to get used to the jargon. But I'm listening, Mom.
Okay, great, Alex, and thank you for that feedback. And again, I always say that we cannot eliminate risk, and sometimes we're always stressed out and we don't know what to do. We show up to work every day. No, there's no way to eliminate. You can only mitigate. So what you have to do is speak knowledgeably to it, have your policies and procedures in place, understand the methodology, understand how they work, and then you don't go to jail. What is happening with a lot of us is, these policies are too thick. We don't like to read. We, using our, like you say, it's very subjective. We just using judgment. We don't have anything documented. And when the police come, we don't even know how to explain ourselves. But if you could speak knowledgeably to it, like these people are 100% smarter than us. Whilst we overworking underpaid from 9 to 5, they sitting in a room all day studying how to infiltrate the system. There's no way for us to beat them. There's no way for us to protect the border. Okay, the only way for us is to put mitigation rules, policies, controls in place, and know how they work and understand them, and then we'll be okay. There's no way to eliminate it. Okay. Wait 1 second. Ian had his hand up.
Okay.
Okay. For feedback, basically I summed it up as systemic versus systematic risk. Because those terms like what we would use in economics. So basically, failure to comply or to be knowledgeable of the FATF 40 recommendations would lead to systematic risk inside the financial services sector, especially if it's across all of the different financial institutes or intermediaries. So that would be a systemic risk coming about failure, like I said, to be living policies, right? So that's
Right.
systemic, and systematic would be in the event of a crisis or some form of anomaly happening that you probably didn't have a proper contingency for, that would probably cause collapse of the whole financial services sector. Am I correct?
Correct, because we're actually reactive rather than
Exactly.
proactive. So of course, it has to fail first. Whatever goes wrong has to go wrong first, and then we say, oh, we learned from that, and now we're gonna put a policy in place or a system in place to protect us. So if we become more proactive than reactive, we'll be okay. And the only way for us to be proactive is, we always copy the laws from Luxembourg or Cayman or the Netherlands. Let's pay attention that what's happening in those countries, and not let it happen to us. Put the controls in place and try to protect ourselves. So if we are infiltrated, then at least we have a contingency plan, or we won't be shocked. But half of the time we just be shocked because and nobody believes me. But our simple problem is that nobody reads. Nobody. And if we do read, nobody comprehends. And we learn comprehension in grade 5 and 6, and then they needed to take it all the way to grade 12, but it stopped. So I'm advocating for, and that's why I say I don't test memory. I don't care if a lot of people have a good memory, but a lot of people do not understand. Okay, so you have to be able to read, comprehend, and then apply it in the real world. That's our biggest problem. Felicia, thank you, Ian. Very
Thank you.
informative.
Going back to trust, when you were talking about trust, let's take the example, a settler, she wishes to open these trusts for 4 kids, and it's going to be, each trust will be in the name of a kid. So kid A, kid B, kid C, kid D. And of course, the beneficiaries of that trust would be the kid themselves and their children, which would be the settler's children and grandchildren. Now, the settler, I guess, for whatever reason, didn't let these children know that she wished to set up these trusts for them. But I guess in her will, whatever way it goes, the trust needs to be set up. And even though these aren't the children's funds, it's coming from the parents, but the name of the fund, let's say for kid A and kid B, they have adverse media. So of course you need to run their name correct, because that's the name of the fund. And the trustees' argument is the funds aren't for these children, but the name of the trust is kid A, kid B. Kid C and kid D are fine, but kid A and kid B have adverse media. How would you move forward with something like that?
Okay, so again, you have to decide what your company's risk appetite is. And again, there is policy and procedure, and then there's best practice. Okay. For a very long time, we did not have to identify the beneficiary. The settler could open, and again, for confidentiality reasons, we didn't even get the beneficiaries KYC. However, that posed a problem when the settlers passed away or when distributions were made. You have to be able to identify the person. So you have to decide whether your company is going to accept the other 2 beneficiaries with the adverse media, knowing that if you don't, that person is going to close out the entire, you could possibly lose the entire account. And so normally it comes down to a money decision. Okay, so you have to find a very savvy way, and that's the only way to do business now with all these policy and procedures. No banks will be open if you are not knowledgeable and business savvy. And we learned this from tax evasion versus tax avoidance, what we will learn in intermediate. There's a way to avoid, but you cannot evade. And so you must know policy and procedure and law, so you avoid and not evade. So you can make an executive decision that the value of this account is $10 million. If this adverse media is detrimental, have you filed STRs, suspicious transaction reports, to the FIU? Because if it's adverse media, you should have filed an STR. But your company has to make an executive decision and document it. based on the customer, the long-term relationship, we, a memo to file, we've decided to keep these accounts. But where you will get fined as a company if you don't file SDRs against those two persons and you don't have a memo on file to justify the decision you made to keep this account open. Okay, I had somebody with adverse media out of Malaysia. The person was politically exposed. And so we were told that this person is like a witch hunt, like, the Democrats against the Republicans. To protect ourselves, we filed an SDR. We let the FIU investigate it. And luckily they came back to us and say they no longer have any interest in the case. They investigated it and the case is closed. Had we closed that account initially or said, no, this person, we would have lost a very large, $19 million was involved. So document your decision, file the SDRs, because we are not the police. Let the police decide whether or not that adverse media, and you have to be careful with your policy now, because our policy sometimes conflicts with what we actually do. And this is where we get in trouble with the regulator. Our policy stated that anybody who is charged or anybody who has adverse media, we cannot open their account.
Okay, now here's a twist. What if now, let's say for whatever reason, you don't have any information on Kid A and Kid B. You just know that Kid A's name is Kid A and Kid B's name is Kid B. No. So you got a hit on Kid A and Kid B, but you don't have a middle name or a nationality or an age to actually zoom in and say for sure that this is the person that you got a hit on.
No,
and the trustee doesn't need to provide a passport.
No, the law has changed, and you need to go and read the specifics of the law. Everybody has to be, if you're a beneficiary, we require KYC on you. And again, even if it doesn't specify, you have to go to central bank guidelines and see what it says specifically for a trust. So I haven't worked there for the last 4 years. And when in 2018, everything was updated. So the new central bank guidelines has a in-depth information on trust. And so I believe everybody has to be verified. And even if the law doesn't say it, your company's internal policy can be more stringent than the law. It can be less stringent or you'll get fines. And remember, I talked about the Swiss being less stringent and the Canadians being more stringent. So yeah, you could just say that your internal policy says that you must verify everybody. And if that's a beneficiary, before you open that account, or let's just say it was open long time, you now, when you do a review, you are required to know your customer. And in that requirement, you have to know that all parties to the account. You have to have all passports with all middle names and to know for sure that this is Felicia Renee, what your last name. You must know that means you don't know your client. And if you get audited or the regulators come in, you will be fined and you could possibly go to jail. So gone are the days when we don't know and we don't have an all bullet and co on the shareholders agreement or shareholders registry, and we don't know who bullet and co represent. Gone are the days. After 2018, institutions are being fined and people are going to jail. Remember, now we're being internationally watched. So we can't, ignorance and negligence, no. You have to know your client. So you have to ask and you have to get that KYC. And if there's pushback, then you have to make an executive decision and let the CEO put something on file and let compliance sign that they are aware and it's being monitored and it's up to them. They should file an SDR, because that's what I did. When I got that negative news out of Malaysia, I filed my SDR. So I cleared myself. We didn't close the account. And the police, luckily the FIU, again, they got caught up in the changes of the 218 as well. They never used to reply. Luckily, all of that changed and they replied. They took 2 years, but they sent me updates and they're saying, Ms. Bullitt, we are monitoring whatever, what have you. And then they finally sent me a letter and said, we could confirm that it was just a witch hunt. This person did not money launder in Malaysia, and the, you could continue on, but we would have lost the customer and all his relatives if we had closed out that account. So make an executive decision and have it documented. Okay, Candace?
Yes, I just wanted to speak to that. Doing remediation for corporate accounts could be quite difficult now, having to identify who a beneficial owner is and having to do KYC or having them bring in their documents. It's not easy because you find now that a lot of these beneficial owners and directors are persons who are in top positions in this country and are very powerful. And a lot of times they don't want to comply. But just going back to what you said, they now have to be identified, and in-house working in a bank, sometimes it's not easy, but you do have to make note that you reached out, and the account is then monitored, and you don't know what happens after that. Really, it goes up, but you do have some persons who refuse to comply. From experience, I can say that.
Okay, yeah, I have 16 years of it, Candace. I know
once
you open that account, it is blood to get anything, especially because I always worked with high net worth individuals, and we always had the tip around them. You got to give blood to get
how
any
to say
update.
it, what to say.
Yeah, you got to give blood to get any of this. And the sales people, oh no, you're gonna set, you're gonna do this and you're gonna do that. And so gone are those days. We can now go to jail, and it's now accountability and responsibility. So all institutions after 218 have to retrain their staff to understand, listen, in our policy, we say this is, and Central Bank pulled this out, Ms. Bullard, you say an undesirable account is somebody who you've been chasing and they will not comply. You show me 4 emails that you send requesting an update passport, and you won't close out the account. We find in this institution, because this is what your policy say. This is an undesirable account. Okay, so that's where the regulators coming from at this point. So if you want to fine, if you want possibly lose your job or go to jail, gone are these days. So we have to, like I say, find a very savvy way to remain open. Like nowhere in the world you could go and open an account without producing this, and we talking about the ease of doing business. There's no ease, okay, but nowhere in the world you can go. And so we are going to talk about customer due diligence. And as we move on, there are 5 statutory requirements. 1 is monitoring. The first is identification. The last one is monitoring. If you don't monitor that and make your notes and adjust your policy says this person is difficult and we're going to close it out, you better change that in your policy, because the regulators coming to look, well, you don't consider this difficult if you run this person down for 3 years and you didn't get an updated passport. So what we do and what we write has to correspond. And then we have to ensure that we put memos on the file to protect ourselves, or we become negligent. Okay, Candace, you wanted to say something else?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, yeah, so it's very difficult, and that's why we get paid loads of money to do this, because it is very difficult. Okay, so make sure that you are paid for all this anguish and stress that you go through as compliance professionals. Okay, Jasmine, go ahead.
I have a quick question. Okay, say I have a trust, right? And I die, and my husband, I have everything in black and white in my trust, right? And I die, my husband is now the controller or whatever. But even though I have everything in black and white, where I want this to go, where I want that to go, and whatever, because I don't work in the financial sector. This is my first time introduced to something like this. So in the event like that, right? Can my husband go ahead and probate what it is that I have, or what I have written, or however I put my business in place, can my husband go ahead and probate that and then come up with his own solution or decide what he wants to do with what I left in place?
Okay, a trust is a legal entity. When you open up a trust or foundation, and all of this is to protect against death and wills and what have you, you no longer own that money in the trust. You now say, I trust, and Royal Bank of Canada or whatever institution becomes a trustee. You are no longer the owner. Then you write a letter called a letter of wishes, and you say that I wish that you accept instructions from me, or I wish that you expect whoever I want to sign on the account. And that's how the trustee operates, based on transfer requests. But the trustee has the right, like when I was at Royal, we had an alcoholic, okay? He had about $20 million. His father had passed and left $20 million for his upkeep. And he was an alcoholic, and he used to call us and say, I don't have gas in my car. I need gas money. But he really wanted money to go out and drink. And we said, no, we are going to pay directly to the maid to go to the food store and what have you. And we are not going to give you any cash unless you go to rehab. So we had to find a rehab for him to go to, and we paid for him to go to rehab. But he's for years, he had given us trouble. Okay, so the owner of those funds now is the Royal Bank of Canada. So nobody can come and probate, or, you could tell us that when I die, this is what I want you to do. And we carry out your wishes, not your husband, unless you say we'll give all the money to him. And then he has the right, we'll close out the trust or whatever, but you leave your instructions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, and then with that, we had another case where a mother, these people used to get like Bacardi shares, and this is online, so you could go and read it. There was 3 children. After the father died, the mother was about 70 years old, and she was really old. So she put all the money in the trust, and she said, every month, give each child $500,000. And so every month we used to prepare a wire and send it for the $500,000. Now, one daughter said, my mother has no right to put me on a budget. My father left that money. And so she sued the mother. And she took the mother to court, and she said 500,000 wasn't sufficient for her. She had gotten this new husband, and they was living this, already extremely lavish life. And so she said she wanted more than $500,000 a month. And so the mother was really old and frail, but luckily the case only took like 3 years. And then the judge ruled that the mother did have the right to distribute the trust how she wanted it to be distributed, because the daddy essentially said that when he dies, the mother must decide. In his letter of wishes, it said the mother must decide what she'd like to do with the money. And so the daughter lost that case. And so she said to decrease, the other 2 children could get $500,000 a month, but decrease that daughter's own to $5,000 a month. And so every day, and she said, don't send it down to the 30th. Every day, on the 29th of every month, this woman used to call, what is the FedEx tracking number? What time will the check be here? She was like in desperation, but the mother cut off all her money. So you could read that online. Yeah. Okay, so that's how trust works. Very complex and a lot of laws. Okay, Jasmine, you want to say something else?
No, sorry, move mine, sorry.
Okay, great. So just an
Sorry, Ms.
overview.
Millard. Sorry,
Go ahead.
what's the name? If I wanted to find that case online, what's the name?
Google Lisette Besson.
Okay.
Yeah. And they had some Bacardi shares that used to be like 2-3 million, just dump in that account every month. So that trust was just growing and growing and growing. And so that's why she felt that her mother shouldn't have only given her 500,000. That wouldn't have been enough for her and her new husband. But they lost that case. Yeah. Okay, good. So we'll move on to customer due diligence. Okay. And again, this is by now all of us should be familiar if we work in institutions, but no, if we have an account, all of us should be familiar. Okay. Again, there are two international standards for implementing a risk-based approach to customer due diligence. All of this helps with the sound and safetiness of banks. They prevent reputational risk, preserve the veracity of the banking system. They complement the bank's risk management strategy. And again, all of this can be found in the 40 recommendations. And what I always say, there are 40 recommendations and 9 special recommendations. And a person just had my exam and they say, Miss Bullet, you did a typo, you didn't put the answer on it. And it's 49, just because we always say a 40, 40, 40, but it's actually 49. So when y'all get there and y'all see that's a multiple choice, y'all don't get it wrong. Y'all don't cross out this and say, Miss Bullet, you write a typo and miss a point, because that's what like 5 people do. But anyway, there are 5 statutory requirements, and statutory means that it's required by law. So there's a statutory requirement of identification. You must identify your client. There is one of record keeping. You must keep proper records. There's one of training. Each year, we used to have the people over their head to attend training, but now the FIU and the central bank, they put out ads. Please confirm that everybody in your organization is trained, or you'll be charged $10,000 per person per day. There's a statutory requirement of monitoring. Once you open up these accounts, they should be risk rated high, medium, or low. And if it's low, you monitor them every 3 years. If it's high, every year. If it's medium, every 2 years. There's a statutory requirement to have an MLRO on staff. Okay, so let's talk about identification. Okay, identification means you walk into the bank, you open up an account, there are forms that you fill out. You normally have to bring in your passport, proof of address, and then you have to decide what the activity undertaken is going to be, how many deposits you're going to make each month, what amount those deposits are going to be, and you create a profile. What is the purpose of this account? Okay, so again, like I said, gone are the days when we could walk in the bank and just open up an account. Now the law says there must be one form of ID. In the Swiss banks, you see they ask you for one form. In the Canadian banks, they say 2, because they make provisions for human error. Okay, and they don't ever want to be in problems with the regulator. Of course, on this, in the identification process, I've been to many seminars where it's a systemic issue with deficient forms, information missing, wrong names. We get the passport, but we let the person fill out the passport says Robert, but we let them use their alias. They fill it out as Bob. If you work in wealth management, some of these persons have 3 homes all around the world, but of course they want to put the address whereas, that has the less taxes. So throughout my opening package was 45 pages because I worked in wealth management. So 3 pages had 3 different addresses, or information was just incomplete or wrong. When you identify the person, you need to know the full correct name. You need 2 or more means of contacting the person, means that you need an email address and a telephone number. You need a date and place of birth. You need the purpose of the account. And again, this is very important because I don't know if you all know, we had our good Edison Sumner. He had a broker-dealer account where he said this particular account is for cryptocurrency, right? And so my customers are gonna come, let's say, down to the Royal Bank or down to the Scotia Bank and deposit onto my account that is for cryptocurrency, okay? So we opened the account, customers came in, some deposited 10,000, some 20, some $30,000. The account officer at Scotia Bank received transactions from Mr. Sumner and his CEO, but he wanted to buy a BMW and he wanted to go on a trip to Orlando and he wanted to buy a Rolex watch. But when we received that transaction via the Scotiabank employee, we say, this Mr. Sumner letterhead, this the date, this the email address, and that's his signature, it match. Go buy that Rolex for him. What we do wrong? Anybody? You're listening to me or you're asleep?
And as well as,
Activity.
y'all conducted a transaction out of the client's profile or anticipated activity.
Correct. Because we said this account was for cryptocurrency or for investment. So you cannot go and take other people's money and buy somebody a Rolex or a BMW or any luxury item. Okay. So profile is very important. So like I say, most of the time we only making sure that signature match. If that signature match, wire gone. Okay. So of course, Scotiabank, that account officer is negligent for allowing that wire to go out. Okay. And so not only was he fined and banned from the Securities Commission for 10 years, and his CEO was banned for life. Scotiabank also got a fine. I'm not certain if the person got fired, depending on if they was in the right network or not. But that if you are not in the right network, you will get fired and you could possibly go to jail. Okay, so be careful of that. So we need to know the people's nationality, and this is very important, because if we say we don't do business with high-risk countries, I had somebody present to me the other day, I live in America for the last 10 years, but I was born in Afghanistan. We don't have an appetite for Afghanistan. It's very high risk. Should I be concerned about that?
Repeat that to me, please, Ms. Bullet.
Yeah.
The person was born in Afghanistan,
Yes.
has a passport from Afghanistan, but they live in America for the last 10 years.
Yes, you should be concerned.
Yes, you should.
Okay, because again, most people come go to America or Bahamas or wherever for a better way of life. And then they send the money back home to their parents. So you have to know the person's nationality, and you have to know your customer. You have to intimately know this person to ensure that you cover yourself with all the risks. Okay, so the other day, the salesperson came to me and said, "Oh, come on, they haven't been to Afghanistan for 10 years. I said, "Okay, are the parents still there?" Or he left his wife and children there. So if he left his wife and children there, okay, exactly. So nationality is very important. Okay,
because,
and many persons have dual passports, or they have a second passport. Look at in the passport, it still tells you the nationality. Okay, and then there's a big debate over nationality and citizenship. I don't want to get into it. Find out what the definition is in your company and make sure you understand, because again, you tailor these definitions to your business. Okay, but make sure it isn't too far of course for what the law says. Okay, and again, then you want to know the occupation. If you're medium or low risk rated, then you get the source of income. If you're high risk, then you get the source of wealth. Okay, so it's two different things. So source of income can be your job letter, your pay stub. Source of wealth can be 3 years financials if you're a company, or it could be an inheritance from your mommy or your daddy, or I sold a piece of real estate, bring me the conveyance. So it's two different things. Again, your institution has to determine the definition and tailor it to your business. Okay. Now, I've seen a lot of persons in sales get source of wealth. They bring me 3 years of financials. I'm not a CPA. I could read a balance sheet, but some I need help with. So don't take it on as a compliance professional. You should have an accountant or your accounts department, let them sign off and say that the company is profitable. But what I've seen a lot of compliance persons do is, oh, there's 3 years of financials. Okay, your receivables being collected. Okay, and they throw that on the file. So another systemic problem. We're getting the information, we're not corroborating it. We're not making sure it makes sense. We're not making sure that these businesses are profitable, because we don't understand how the financials work. We don't know how to read a balance sheet, and we don't like to ask for help. Okay, so don't just collect all this paper and throw it in the file and nobody ever look at it, tell something happened. Okay, be proactive. And again, estimated level of accountability, estimate size. Again, directly urban renewal, open an account, our government paycheck couldn't have been more than $3,000 a month. How is it that $1.3 million got into our account? What was Teachers Credit Union and CIBC doing? Okay, how do you allow 1.3 million from a $3,000, and she probably get $2,000. She is a director, urban renewal. Okay, and then classification. At that time, this was prior to 218. Did we consider her politically exposed? I can tell you that we consider her politically exposed now, right? So again, you have to have proper systems in place, because if you have 800 clients and you have to have proper metrics in place, because you will be overwhelmed and a lot of these things will pass right over you. If you don't have a system in place, or if it's a new system, like let's look at what happened with dirty money, with the Volkswagen. New system, nobody knew how to use it. And so they defrauded the world with those emission tests. The same thing could happen in a bank. New system, we don't know how it works. We don't know what the system does. We don't know what support the system gives us. And we don't know if we need to do some things manually. And we in action because we already have too much work to do. Okay, and this is what the scammers prey on, our ignorance, our inability to read, and us being overworked and underpaid. Okay, and so this is why they have $3 million worth of fraud. Okay, so be sure that you understand the threshold and the amount of money coming in, the size of the account. Because if I bring in you a $2,000 a month paycheck and I work for government, what you even doing in the bank in the middle of the month? You only get paid once a month. If you see a government employee in the bank after the 5th or the 6th, you should be asking questions. Because government payday is 3 days before the end of the month and then after. And so when you ask those questions, okay, where's this extra income coming from? Okay, all of these are red flags. You are required to know your client. No more excuses. And the only way you can know if your institution has 800 clients, we talked about the metrics and making sure that everybody only has a certain amount of accounts and whether they are high, medium, or low. We talked about that, right? Alfredo, we talked about that?
I'm sorry, yes, we talked about that.
Okay, so we understand, because people say, how am I expected to know all these clients? Have the proper metrics in place, okay? So after you would have gotten all these identification documents, please make sure that the passport copy is legible. The writing is legible. We suggest that you photocopy in color, because a lot of us scan this up to the system, and when we go back to make a copy of it, the picture is no longer legible. I am working on a case now where I have a customer out of, where is it, Greece? And what salespersons do is if persons miss a spot, they fill it in for themselves because they don't want to send this package, they do it online, but they have to send the originals through the mail. So, and they have 30 days to do that. So if a spot is missing, they just fill it in because they don't send it back. But we have had customers show up in court and said, my copy, I didn't agree to that, so I didn't fill it in. And so the bank is charged because we tampered with the person's document. But so many times we accept it, so many times we fill it in, or we suggest this what the person means. Don't do it. Okay? My case that I'm working on now, I filed an SDR and I see my CEO stamped it certified true and correct. So I called him on the phone. I said, Mr. So-and-so, you know this name? You know Anthony Bo? So he said, no, I've never heard of her. I said, you sure? Because you certified you the correct your stamp on this, on our passport. And she did some fraud down in Greece and refiling STR. He run, I talking about, he didn't even hang up the phone. He run down and said, let me see. Who is this person? I've never seen her in my life. But again, they wanted the account open right away. And so he stamped it, certified true and correct. Now that going to the FIU, and if that passport is fraudulent, what's going to happen to our CEO? And he is saying, Miss Bullet, do you have to send that copy? I said, this is the only copy on the file. Okay, but we take all these things for granted and we say the ease of doing business and we don't build a relationship with the client. And the corporate world is like getting accounts, especially in the offshore world, is very competitive. So we put ourselves out on a limb. Okay. Another problem is that if you do not meet the client, you are supposed to get it certified. And they say right now to a teacher, a minister, a doctor, anybody get certified, right? However, what my issue is when central bank come into our checks, our audits, the information in Mandarin. Who could read Mandarin? Who know how to go? We can't read Mandarin and we don't know nowhere in China to go find this certifier and we don't know if it's legit. So everything must be in English and that's what the central bank requires. And if your company just say, well, we want to offer a white glove service to our customer and they speak Spanish, then you have to ensure that they go and get those documents translated. In fact, one institution where I work, they said, Miss Bullet, you must go learn Spanish. I said, no, I will not. Because then I'll have to learn French and Mandarin, and I'm not going to do that. Okay, so you have to ensure that those things are in the right language. And then, of course, it goes on to talk about a corporate client. When the account opens, there's no good standing. But 1 year after, you are to request the good standing. Are we making those requests? Okay, needs to be a board resolution telling you exactly who is to do what on the account. Okay, you want satisfactory evidence of each natural person. There's no more bullet and go. When you get a shareholders registry and it says bullet and co, you must find out who that and co represents. There must be a nominee agreement, and then we must check all those persons on the nominee agreement. We must check all members and directors. Okay, so before the law used to say anybody with 25% shareholding. So just like the Smurfing, where it was 10,000, they bought 9.99. Now the shareholding is 10%. They drop it from 25 to 10. Now a person's bringing in me shareholders registry say I own 8% because they don't want to be verified. Again, red flag. Verify them anyway. Okay, because like I said, this is the law. However, your policy could be more stringent in the law, and you will have some persons complaining that it hampers the ease of doing business, but you have to protect yourself, and you don't necessarily have to go out to the client for extra information. We try and work with the information they provided, and if it isn't sufficient, then you go and request more information and document how you made this decision based on what on file. It's very important, and date it because the law has changed. And so I made this memo at this time that would have been relevant. However, the law has changed and now I need to go update all my memos. Okay. But I also had the experience where, I allowed the private banking manager to put 1 or 2 waivers on file. And when it was review time, she had 100 waivers. So you have to manage it, engage it. 1 or 2 waivers, but you don't want an entire file of waivers. Okay. So again, like I said, 1 year after, you have to put a note in the system to get that good standing. You have to make sure that the rightful owners are still the right owners if you're accepting bearer shares. Okay, and now it's CRS and FACA. And so you want to make sure that those, because due diligence has to be carried out on those forms. Okay, and of course, persons are gonna give you addresses where the tax rate is lowest. If you have a Swiss passport, you can't say you live in the Bahamas. Okay, we had a case where, it was a Canadian passport, but they said they live in the Bahamas and they filled out our forms. And of course, we got a subpoena from the Canadian government. And we called the person on the phone. We say, hey, you put on this file that you have a Bahamian work permit or citizenship. Can we have a copy? They said, oh, I applied and I was denied. So of course we got charged with cooperation. So ensure that if the passport does not match, then you have to get the work permit, or you have to get, in the Bahamas, if it ain't a Bahamian passport, then you have to get the work permit or the citizenship. Okay. And then the size. Oh, I could deposit $10,000. No, your salary slip says you make 2,000. Where are you getting this money from? Okay. And when they bring in all the information, make sure it makes sense. Corroborated. It must match. Okay. So that's the statutory requirement of identification. The next statutory requirement is record keeping. And basically, the central bank says 5 years after these accounts were closed, you must keep all this KYC information. The Securities Commission says 7 years. You need to check your regulator, and because sometimes where I work, we are licensed by the Securities Commission and we are licensed by the central bank. So we just keep everything for 8 years. You don't want to be right on the spot and at 7 years destroy everything. Okay, because there are fines involved if the regulators or the FIU need information and you don't have it. Okay, McQuell, give me some feedback. No feedback from McQuell? McQuell sleep. Deandra, you awake?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so give me some feedback, please.
Okay. I have one question though. So is it, I know you say that your protocols can be a little bit more stringent than the law. So with the holding of the documents after the accounts and everything have been dissolved or liquidated, however, can you keep them for longer than required of the by your regulatory board?
Well, in the past, we did keep it longer. However, because Royal Bank kept everything for 10 years. And now the Securities Commission has come back to us and said, because of the rate of fraud and persons just leaving these things in storage and never ever looking back at them, and then storage facilities being sold to the highest bidder, they want you to destroy as soon as reasonable. Okay, so you can keep it a few years later, but somebody has to man that to make sure that the scammers don't go down to the storage facility having a sale because you already didn't pay the rent and they sell all the confidential information.
That makes sense.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Okay, and so the next statutory requirement is training. And the book tells you new employees should get general information on money laundering and terrorist financing within the first month of employment. Of course, we need to know not stealing by reason of employment, sorry, failure to disclose and tipping off. We have to be very careful with that because a lot of times when we do stop transactions, people do say compliance stop it. Now, compliance is independent of the business. Compliance never speaks to clients. And no salesperson or account officer should say that compliance stop your entry. Okay, so you have to be very savvy and advise your staff of, some delays they could, not to tip the client off, but you should never ever say compliance stop it or compliance one notice or what have you. And a lot of people, they say that. okay? Because compliance can stop any entry, and correspondent banks stop lots of entries. And we don't have to give you an explanation. And a lot of times they want explanations, but when, like, I deal with a lot of securities, and there's a trading platform called One Double. When they don't send through your entry, they don't give you normally I'd say, okay, compliance will speak to compliance. They don't even speak to me. They said, go and do your research, and you should see why we stopped this entry. Because again, you could be liable, you could be sued, especially when you're dealing with very wealthy persons. They send their lawyers to you right away. So decide what verbiage or what communications you send out to your clients. So people got to stop being so comfortable with saying, oh, compliance, block it. Compliance want your passport or want this information. No. In your account opening package, there should be an express consent clause. That means should a third party who do the wires or your correspondent bank needs information, we automatically could give it to them. I worked at an institution where they did not have express consent, and it was a nightmare. They was getting threats left, right, and center from lawyers. I didn't allow you to send my information. And at the time when compliance stopped their entry, they would call the client and say, could we share your information with Deutsche Bank? And then, of course, that opens a can of worms. Why Deutsche Bank need? Why would they stop it? Why did, So you have to be careful. Okay. Employees dealing directly with the public. Training should be focused on issues that may give rise to suspicions. You should know how to fill out an SDR form. There should be an internal one on who your MLRO is and the process. Account opening officers. Again, you should know how to look when you identify the person, all the information that is needed. Training should be provided in respect of the need to verify the customer's identity, make sure legible documents, make sure they are in English, and the process for suspicious transactions, and then managers and back office, what they should know, okay? The next statutory requirement, monitoring. After we would have collected all this information, we normally risk rate that client high, medium, or low. And once we risk rate that client, we are to monitor them. So there's a review period. And so across, again, this is another systemic problem where reviews are behind. When we open the account, it didn't make sense. Now we are more knowledgeable and educated. We're trying to piece it together, and these people don't even do nothing like what they say they're going to do. Transaction types, you want to print out the whole history of the year, what they did, and put it on file, or the 3 years, however they are rated. For instance, we had an account once where Brave Davis's daughter got married, and he was rated as low. However, when it was review time, we call him up on the phone and we say, hey, how's it going? Anything substantial change, any substantial changes, whatever. He said, oh, I married the opposition leader's daughter. Ding, 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 ding. What do we do?
He now has to be PEP.
Okay, excellent.
He's not associated PEP.
Right. And so, of course, we had to move him from low to high risk. And we had to re-risk rate him and now carry out enhanced due diligence on him. And we're going to get to enhanced and simplified in a moment. Okay. So this is the importance of building a relationship, being able to ask these sometimes sensitive questions and knowing your client. Okay. And then sometimes people move. Oh, I moved to Russia. But the bank does not have an appetite for Russia. And so, again, you have to make a decision executively. Do we keep this account or do we de-risk it? Okay, Felicia, go ahead.
Once a PEP, always a PEP. I know some institutions go by once a PEP, always a PEP. Some would say, I think after 10 years, they're no longer a PEP.
Right. So before 2018, the central bank guidelines suggested that a PEP was only a PEP for 1 year after it had left office. And so that has now been removed. However, a lot of institutions have not updated their policies to reflect same. And so what that meant is if you said, okay, this Perry Christie has been out, he's no longer a PEP. We now, central bank came in and said, because we had we had a PEP out of the Netherlands, and central bank said, well, why didn't you update the account? Because the law has changed. And so we got a note for that. So your institution can now they leave it up to you. So some institutions put 5 years, some put 10, but they want to see it in your policy. Okay, but my belief is once a PEP, always a PEP, because who's really going to watch to see if they on the campaign trail? These people become consultants. They help their party all the way through. So I believe once a PEP, but again, you are allowed to make that determination. It has to be documented in your guideline, and you have to follow it properly. Okay. Okay, so that's monitoring. Statutory requirement, the MLRO. All financial services businesses must have the MLRO, the money laundering reporting officer, on staff. Okay, or they don't get their licenses. And again, you can put an ad in the paper. You can hire somebody, but there is a vetting process that has to go through to your regulator, and your regulator then decides if that person is fit and proper for that position. Okay, and so if the regulator says no, then you have to find somebody else. Okay, and now a lot of persons where companies have failed, or they had a lot of issues, 15,000 deficiencies, and always in trouble, they have put those MLROs on a list, a block list. You can have any other position in the company. You can't be the MLRO. Okay, and so again, most companies, the law says anybody can fill out a suspicious transaction form. However, we do have policies and procedures within our company that says you do not fill out this. I have a one pager that you fill out, and you send it through your MLRO. And so people say, oh, this company, that's somebody's friend, or they're not going to report it. Then you should not want to work at that company, because I guarantee you, if you go outside the policy, you will be fired, and then you have to go through the whole victimization foolishness, and you don't want to do that. So if the company is outside of your appetite and not doing what it's supposed to do, then you resign. But don't stay there and go to jail with them. Because you do have some companies, and the MLRO is privy to more information, or the board would have made an executive decision and said, we don't want to file this. Okay, so if it's outside of your appetite, then you leave and find a better company that's more AML sound. Okay, I have somebody in my class who said, I'm reporting all those funny businesses down, because I don't see what type of this hand lotion. They have 5, I want the police to investigate them. You have your right, because that's not a customer at the bank. But follow your company's policy. But if you want to go and file an SDR or for another situation that's not directed to your work, you are welcome. The form is online. Okay, and once you are approved as the MLRO, you are to register with the FIU. They give you access to their system. They want a private number and a private email outside of the institution you work for, where they can contact you, and they want directions to your house. Okay. So those are the 5 statutory requirements. Very popular question on the exam. The MLRO, monitoring, record keeping, training, and identification. So gone are the days when Ms. Bullitt had to run behind the 20 people in this class and say, come do your AML training. I think everybody is aware now that the institution will be fine. And if the institution is fine, I'm certain you will not get any bonus, or you may even go home. Okay, so everybody did a 180, and everybody is, when Ms. Bullitt say there's training, they showing up. Okay, and central bank is even on the ball. You know, like I said, gone are the days, they send you a message and you never hear back from them. They now have an analytics department where they have a relationship management team, and each bank is assigned an officer, and that officer risk rates that bank, and they are hands-on. They call you almost every day. Okay, and the Securities Commission. And so one day they call me and say, Ms. Bullet, everybody in your institution, you do the training. They call me in January. I say, yes, of course. You're just not on. Anybody get a $10,000 fund. Okay, so that's where we are at with this. No more, you know, they are working with enforcement, and it's a hands-on approach. Okay, so leads us to the last part of this chapter that talks about simplified due diligence and enhanced due diligence. Again, very popular question on the exam. Simplified, the book just talks about simplified. I think the central bank has changed it as well, but there are some companies that are exempted. So any bank and trust company that's regulated, any company carrying life assurance, a broker dealer, an investment fund, what have you, they are exempted from this identification of KYC. So that what that means is that Scotiabank can go into the Royal Bank of Canada and open up an account and say, I don't need to bring KYC because the regulator has all of this. However, Royal Bank has said, we don't accept exempted accounts. And so I was at Royal Bank Trust, and on the retail side, if my passport expired, they blocked my account, they blocked the bank account that I was signing on. So I couldn't say, well, you know why it's going out today? Because Royal Bank Retail block our account. That's how, you know, strict Royal Bank is. However, you know, you do get away with it. In some, I worked at a Swiss bank where they did accept exempted accounts. So Scotiabank came, opened an account with us. They didn't have to bring ID or anything. So we just opened up the account. But that poses a problem because when you bring a signatory list, then you don't know who, you know, signing on it. So there are some minimum requirements that you need to get, like the signatory list and ID. For when people come in to pick up the check, they say, oh, we sent in this board of director to pick up the check, and then we had no ID to even, you know, we didn't know who the man was. So there are some problems with these exempted accounts. So once you're regulated by a regulator, normally you are considered exempted. But of course, we know the Canadian banks, they don't even take the island locks and assurance or whatever, so they can't walk up into Scotiabank and say be exempted. The Scotiabank say you too cash intensive, you outside of our risk appetite, we ain't opening no account for you. Okay, so
And in this case, the regulator would be the central bank, right?
for island lock doors?
No, not for them. I mean, just in general, financial institutions or intermediaries.
Yeah, for banks, the banks and credit unions and the money services business is the central bank. All the gaming houses is the gaming board. Securities, broker dealers, a Securities Commission. Law firms, accounting firms, and real estate compliance commission. So there are about 5 regulators.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. And they all work together because, again, all of them would have gotten their information and they collated to create the risk assessment for the Bahamas. Okay, so simplified just means that I have high, medium, or low clients. With the high, medium, or low, for the low and medium, I could just get your passport, the 2 forms of ID, the 2 forms of communication, I guess your CRS and FACA form, and I can get a pay stub. With enhanced due diligence, it means that I need to go the extra mile. I need to risk rate you as high. That's a control. I need to do extra checks on you. So normally for medium and low, we do world check. For high, we do, this is in the Swiss bank, we do Google searches, LexisNexis and world check, and then sanctions. And then we, there's a report called proximal, where they go into your country and they do a full investigation on who you are, and they charge $1,500 for that. So of course, you can see now how when you open up your risk rated as high risk, you already have a $1,500 charge, whereas low and medium accounts for only $250. So right off the bat, you have a $1,500 charge for this proximal report. Okay, so we label you as high risk. We get this proximal report where they go in your country. We let the compliance officer approve low and medium. We let the compliance committee or AML committee approve high. We monitor you annually. Low and medium, we monitor you every 3 years. High risk, you're assigned to a senior member of the organization. Low and medium could be to a junior. If you're a PEP, we let the board approve you. If you're high risk, every time you do a transaction, compliance signs. So they are the different controls that are in place. So as you can see, enhanced due diligence is carried out on high risk and PEPs. Simplified due diligence is on low and medium. Okay, is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So then politically exposed person, and this was a big question in ICA, and people went right to the central bank guidelines, which is right here on page, I guess, 50. Politically exposed means an individual who is entrusted with domestic or prominent public figure, your mommy, your daddy, your sister, your close associate, you know, and any prominent public function. So we're talking about the head of the police force, the head of the defense force, and what have you. However, Michelle Reckley, you know, head of urban renewal, taught us a lesson. So we would watch her closely because, of course, the institution does not want a big percentage of their business to be high risk, or they will be subject to enhanced due diligence and more fees. So everybody is fighting for the low and medium clients, but sometimes you can't avoid it. Okay. And so the big question in ICA, you know, they said, explain to us the definition of a politically exposed person. And people were like, how am I supposed to write 3,500 words about, you know, this in just this one paragraph in the law and about the 40 recommendations about it. However, the key to the answering that question is that in UK, the UK has a definition that's less stringent than the definition in Mexico. So you had to actually answer that question by doing a country analysis. So in Mexico, they say, and in Russia, they say all civil servants are PEPs. Okay, and in the UK, they stick to like the senior levels. Let's just say in the Bahamas, they'll go as far as the permanent secretaries and then everybody else. But in Mexico, they have a wide array and a wide list. And normally, even though, you know, this is the Bahamas and our definition of PEP is, you know, similar to the UK's one, there's be a common law and their common law. If you have a Mexican account in the Bahamas, you are expected to, you know, label it depending on whoever has the higher risk. So Mexico says this is a civil servant and Russia said this is a civil servant. You better have it listed or at least mentioned in a memo somewhere on your file that while in the Bahamas, this is not considered a PEP, it is considered in that person's country. Okay, and this person is a civil servant and which, you know, this just an accountant for the Mexican government or something to that effect. Okay. Any questions? Okay, and so a big problem too is categorizing it properly. I once you see a government approach you, more than likely they are people signing on the account are considered PEPs because, you know, I audited this institution where they had the government of St. Lucia account and they had the Antigua and Barbuda account, but they didn't have it listed as PEPs. I said, it's not the Minister of Finance signing on this account. Like, who signs? Like, how could this not be a PEP account? You know, and is this in your appetite? It's, so make sure that you understand these definitions. And if you deal with other countries, you also have to, do a little bit of research on that company. If you have Mexicans, if you have people from Switzerland, whatever, and that's why it's important to have the proper metrics in place where, there's head of the Asian desk, head of the Swiss desk, head of Latin America. So you could pick a pattern and you could pay attention to their news every now and again. You could put it on your Facebook feed, and so you will be aware. And when you see, your clients see them going across them, you'll be able to identify it. Okay. So that's enhanced and simplified. You all very quiet. You're scaring me again. Miss Bullet needs some water. I'm out dry. Yeah, Miss Bullet talk too long. Nobody talk back to her. Come on, give me some feedback. No feedback? Let me see who I ain't here from. Let me see who don't have their 10%. Eleanor Major. Eleanor, you there? No, Eleanor. Okay. Let me see. Omega, you here today? I ain't hear from you today.
I'm here.
Okay, give me some feedback, please.
I don't have any feedback.
Okay, so you right outside the bank sector. I know, so it's a little bit different from you, but can you retain this? Do you understand? Are we on the same page?
Yes, ma'am, I understand all the information. All is new to me. Not really new to me because I still deal with funds and stuff with because I work the Michelle Win, the number place.
Right.
So it's good information.
Okay, so we could have a conversation about this. You know what Ms. Bully talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what about you, Deandra?
Yes, ma'am. It's not new because I work in the financial sector, but it just gives me an idea because the section I work in only deals with certain aspects of, knowing the client, the due diligence and so forth. So it only deals with certain aspects. I don't get to see everything, but now it's kind of piecing together, even though it's a lot of information. It's kind of piecing together based on what I actually do and what the other side I would say does, if that makes sense.
Okay, good. Ashley Hamilton, Claire's Mud. Alfreda.
Hi, yes, everything's clear. While you was going through the various explanations, I just had
good everything.
I guess a few aha moments. At one point, I worked at a credit union prior to central bank regulating it. So like basically I saw the process they went through before the regulation, during and after. And so a lot of the risk rating aspect, the politically exposed persons, everything kind of makes sense now because while I was there, I didn't work in that area. So I just heard around it. But now that I'm doing this course, everything that you're saying now, it makes sense.
Okay, great. Sierra? Sierra, you ain't talking to me today, okay. And what about my new persons who are here today? I know you're gonna need some time to listen to the first two lectures, and the first one, we had loads of technical difficulties, but were you able, I know Candace seems to be on track. And we heard from Alex. Who's the last person? Can we retain this? Put this in essay form, answer the questions on the final exam. Belisa?
Hi, Ms. Bullard.
Hi.
This is my first time taking a financial course. I don't work in the financial system either.
But at this point, I am gathering all of the information because it's very interesting and it's opening up my mind a lot. So I don't have any feedback. I'm just taking everything in right now.
Okay, and you are gonna network with these good people in the class. You see the person speaking up and how knowledgeable they are. You are going
Yes,
to
ma'am.
network with them to make sure you get through this
Yes,
successfully.
ma'am.
Okay, good. And you all who continuously speak up and participate, please help Welisa out. And I appreciate that.
And me, because I have no idea. Like, I'm just learning about this. Is very, very interesting. And I must say you are doing a good job, because I normally prep for classes. Like, I read the chapters before and make my own notes personally. And going through it, like you going through it, like it has taken me so long to read and understand, and then words I don't understand, or like how they put, let's use KYC. I had no idea what that meant before and prior to this. So it taken me a little bit longer because I had to go now and research to see what these things mean. And so I have to read it and then go back over it and read it where I can understand it using the correct terms so I can get familiar with the terms. So it's kind of difficult. And going to, so like I said, I normally prep before classes, and then going to classes with you is much, much easier. And I really getting to understand this. Like for this being my first time, I really getting to understand. So when you say, and sometimes you're asking questions, I may not answer, but I can, some of the times I can answer. I'll be like yes or no or whatever, because it really is educational.
Okay, good, Jasmine, and I'm happy that you feel that way, and you are definitely on the right track. You read, you do your research, and then you discuss and you ask questions, and that's the only way you learn. So very good that you're being proactive. Very good. Okay, Whistling, I haven't heard from you today. You there?
I'm right here, Miss Bullen.
Okay, so how you feel about what we discussed? You see these terms whilst you at work: enhanced, due diligence, simplified.
Yes, ma'am, I see them because I work in the compliance department now. So this class always keeps me afresh.
Okay, good. And you are familiar with the statutory requirements. You know they are required by law.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So no more pushback to compliance. Oh, I get time for no training. Oh, just be so busy.
We can't tell them we don't have time for training. It's mandatory.
Okay, good. Very, very good. Okay. So are there any more questions or concerns?
Hi, Ms. Bullet. I have a question.
Go ahead.
So what I gather is that the enhanced due diligence is just based on if you're a high risk then, or
Yes.
if you're not a regulated institution or business.
Right. So if you're not regulated, or if you're high risk, or PEP.
Or PEP.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And please, we have one more class. Please do not just sit there and don't speak up. If you need help, this is the time to ask for help, because you already there to the end. We want everybody to be successful. Please ask for help. Please network. And like I say, this is 4 weeks or 5 weeks with review for intro, 10 weeks for intermediate, then 18 months for ICA. So for the persons who decided that I'm going to go all the way to ICA, please start the WhatsApp group. Please network with persons in the class and support each other. It makes it a whole lot easier.
Ms. Bullet.
Yes.
One more thing. I want to ask again about the paper, because I know you sent the email last night saying that I only had to send in one work, but it's still recommended to do the whole 4 questions, like you said, like the paper said.
Well, the exam is 7 essays. And of course, there are only 8 chapters, so you'll have 10 choices. So you can do the other ones for practice, So you when it comes to exam time, when you go, like I said, the key is being organized. You should go into the exam knowing that these are the 7 topics that I'm going to write about.
Oh, because I thought you had to do each one of them each week and send it in.
No,
okay.
Just one. You only get 1 grade, the 120%.
So the other ones we don't have to send them in.
No,
we just do them for good.
Yes, and bring them to when we get to review class, bring it to review class, and as persons go through the topics, you can make sure that you have the relevant points. So with the review, I want each of you to write down 10 points and then, you know, discuss it in the review. This is my 10 crucial points, and I will tell you whether it's fluff or whether you get points for it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Latoya, are you there? No, Latoya.
She says she doesn't feel too good.
Oh, okay. Yes, I just wanted to make sure things were clear with her. Okay, good. So Donovan is saying whomever is starting the WhatsApp group, this is his number. So can we have a volunteer for the persons who want to be in it and who is going to go all the way? Because this is the third class. I thought somebody started it from the first. So anybody want to be the administrator?
I can start it. That's fine.
Okay, who is that? Deandra?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so can everybody send their numbers to Deandra? I guess Donovan is right there. And again, in the ones that I have already, they share different news articles. Whatever news article they read, they just send it in the group. Whichever Toastmasters or Kiwanis or any meeting or industry briefing, they send it all in the group. Okay, so and they support, then they have a study group together and they support each other, and normally they are successful. They go all the way to ICA, but it's really up to you, because again, this first 5 weeks was for you to make the decision. Is this for me? Can I handle? How comprehensive it is? Do I want to go any further? Okay. So any more questions or concerns? No? Okay, so have a fabulous weekend. Get some rest,
Miss Bullet,
unwind.
you still sending the stuff, right? And you said you was gonna send the review sheet or the question sheet?
Yeah, I guess send that by tonight or tomorrow. Y'all will get it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I want y'all to relax and, you know, feel good first, and then to be able to retain this, because the key is to not going from crazy to crazy. Just relax, unwind, feel good, and then pick it back up. Again, persons who have not done their homework, there are only 2 more subjects left. Please, like I say, I beg and plead, because Miss Bullet right now having a war with somebody who didn't get 10%, because every time I call their name, they didn't participate. So that person didn't get 10%. They report me to the office. Another person didn't attend any of the civic organizations, and they want to fight me for the 5%. So your please, you know, I give many opportunities. Afterwards, if you fail by 5%, nothing I can do. I can't help you. And Miss Bullet don't even care if she get reported anymore. Okay, for these points. So y'all just do what I ask, please, because it's being recorded, and I just send all the recordings to the office, and they have me calling the person name every week and get no response. Okay, and that person failed by 8 points. Okay, so like I say, please, I know we as Bahamians, but be proactive rather than reactive. And like I said, this is a lot, but it's achievable. Okay, and if you donate or set aside 2 hours per week, you will be successful. And you'll be able to retain this and carry it out in your organizations. Okay?
So Ms. Bullet, I have all my points in or no?
Yes, but I know you very well.
Thank you very much. I can relax now.
Even Candace, who was saying it's her first day, she wasn't timid at all. She spoke up, so very good, Candace. And Alex seemed to be engaged, so I know them already on their first day.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so very good. Okay, so y'all go have a fabulous weekend and stay safe. And I hope Latoya is well by next week. And so everybody take care and have a great week, and I'll see y'all again next week, okay?
You too. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Alex, could you message me, please?
Who's that?
Miss Celine, we're supposed to be working together
Okay,
for
okay,
the
sorry.
review.
Okay,
I
I
just
will.
dropped my number in the chat. Get it, please.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
okay.
All right, enjoy your day. Thank you, Miss Bullard.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Hey, Ashley, are you there?